say welcome to the Comments on Champa, everybody. Before we get started, the Comments on Champa is a place where Denver Startup Week happens year-round. It's the same founding partners as Denver Startup Week, City and County of Denver, Colorado Technology Association, and the Downtown Denver Partnership. So our mission here is to make access to resources, community, and programming free and open to the public for the entrepreneurial community. So really bringing different networks of entrepreneurs together all under one roof and getting them to collaborate and work together and providing those resources that will really help accelerate those initial first steps. So thank you for being here. Just gonna throw it off on you, so thanks so much.
Thank you. Hi, this is Gabby Heroes and John Dowell, and you can find me on Twitter there, J Dowell.
Louder.
Louder?
Did you tap the button?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. I'd like to first thank our sponsors. A little better right there?
Yeah.
All right. Thank the title sponsors here, Comcast, Downtown Denver Partnership, and Chase for Business, who is sponsoring the base game, as well as the headline and partner and member sponsors. I wanted to talk a little bit about me first. I'm an engineer, a very early engineer at EnvisionApp.com. Has anyone heard of Envision? Or used it? Handful? I'm on Twitter there again, and the slides are going to be posted on my website, johndowell.com. For those who haven't used Envision before, we're the world's leading design and collaboration platform, and our slogan is design makes everything possible, and I think that applies even to engineering, not just graphic design. If you would like to give it a spin, you can sign up for free at EnvisionApp.com. And we're also hiring. So if you're an engineer or know engineers who are interesting and really great, come talk to me. One of the key aspects of our team is we're fully remote. The whole company's remote. We don't have an office. We only have a mailing address in New York. So it's not Denver, but it's still pretty cool. A big part of that is we have to use a lot of collaboration tools to work together. We can't see each other face to face, so we have to work a little bit. So you guys can feedback? No? Okay. So we use Slack, Jira, and PagerDuty. We use Slack for kind of day-to-day communication, and we use Jira to just to get some projects. PagerDuty is kind of a weird one in there. We use it on the operations team to keep track of incidents and make sure more or less people wake up when the site goes down. So I wanted to start with a very short story on kind of how we got to the point where we actually needed heroes. You normally don't need a hero unless you actually have a problem in your life. And we had a lot of problems actually, but most of them had to do with we didn't know where our time was going. So the road to getting there is we started first at a managed hosting provider. They really handled everything from server uptime to making new machines and all of the operational aspects. We decided one day that wasn't really working out for us, so we went to Amazon. And I wish it was as easy as flipping a switch, but we had to kind of lift and shift all of the services and environments over. That was a lot of time and effort to get there, and then part of that we kind of formed this SRE team that was in charge of all of the services and maintenance and the uptime at the end of the day. So that was fine, we all really enjoyed it, and that's why I started working on that team. But the problems started to come in when we were the only people that knew anything about production. Our developers knew their services and the code, but they didn't know anything about production. We didn't know what kind of database we were running outside of MySQL. They didn't know how the traffic routed from the customer to the actual instances. We built all of our environments in Chef, and Chef has this notion of cookbooks and all these other food-related analogies. But so we wrote cookbooks for the services. We were the only ones that actually knew Chef as well. The developers, again, just knew a few of the other languages we used. So again, we had this accretion of knowledge on our team, which was great. We liked learning and growing, but we were also the only people that knew how to fix things when they broke. There was another category that we were the gatekeepers in a way, and it was also good for the company, but detrimental to our productivity. we're the only ones that review secrets and environment variables and how to set those. And so that sounds great. Like, it's good. We know everything, and we were in a good place. But we kept having this question in our daily stand-ups. Like, what did you do yesterday? And everyone's answer was kind of, I don't really know. It was hard to get a handle on what we were actually wasting or spending our time on. So it felt like we were wasting our time. And I think this comic pretty much sums it up. The answer was distractions, really. Or disruptions. The team realized that every day we were being peppered with many, many questions and asks of tasks that had to do with work that wasn't related to our core projects and what we were actually going to be working on. And so we realized that, and we started to get an answer as to why we weren't making any forward progress on our projects. There are a couple stats I found on this while forming the system. In the U.S., there's an estimated $1 trillion wasted per year on disruptions or distractions at work. I'm sure some of that's Facebook and social media, but the majority of it is, I think, coworkers and other people in business units interacting. On average, a typical developer is only going to get a 2-hour stretch without interruptions. And I think that was, we were definitely in that group, maybe even worse. I think probably on a good day, 90 days is what I got. And then 90 days went mostly to trying to figure out what I was going to work on in those 90 minutes, and then there's 10 minutes left. So there's not a lot of focus time, and that's critical for engineering. There's also a great stat too. When you interrupt a developer, it's going to take about 20 minutes for him or her to refocus. So those little quick questions that a manager often has, like, where's the status on this, and what's happening here? That every time that interruption takes 5 seconds for the answer, but 20 minutes to refocus. I think it's important to call out that the disruptions weren't actually wasted. So we weren't wasting time on them. They were actually important to the business as a whole, but they just weren't contributing to our team's goals. And I like the lean definition of waste here. First, you kind of figure out what's the value, and then everything else is going to be waste. There's also this great quote by Dimon here. It was played a pretty influential part in a lot of the lean manufacturing movement and Toyota production system. And this quote is, I think, true to the fact that we were wasting the resources on our team. We had 6 people, and their time was being burned without really much progress to be shown. And so the next thing we wanted to do before really setting out anymore is what are our goals? Like, what do we want to get out of our team? Obviously, we want to produce work, and we want to get projects going through, but this solution, what are the goals actually going to be? The first one we came up with was timeline. We wanted to make sure that when somebody asked for help, they actually got a response. And it wasn't just throw a ticket to the system and wait for the undetermined amount of time. Part of this is expectation setting and letting other people know that you're going to get an answer within a certain time frame. The second one was to automate, and that was revolving around the fact that we didn't want to be the bottleneck for every team going forward. So it also has to do with the fact that we have a team, our SRE team is about 6 people big, and then the rest of the company, engineering-wise, is about 90. So we kind of it's a little more than a 10-to-1 ratio, and it just doesn't make sense to have more SREs just to answer questions day in and day out. We don't want to be a help desk. We actually want to move forward in automating infrastructure and replace the future of our infrastructure. Third goal was easy. We didn't want our internal customers, so we were thinking about it, to really have to go a long way out of their way. We wanted to make sure it was really, really easy. If they needed help, it was the most frictionless thing they did that day. And the last goal, which I think is the most important, was our productive and satisfied team. We didn't want a lot of days where we were asking the same question and staying up without an answer. We wanted to actually move forward on our progress on our goals. The first attempt that we made, we have an on-call rotation already, and that's the guy or girl that gets woken up in the middle of the night. And we said, okay, let's take that person, and since they're already on our rotation, let's just make them go watch our Slack room, and any questions that come along, we'll go ahead and answer those. That didn't last but for a day, really, because the on-call person's pulled they're going to be pulled in that direction. They also couldn't take lunch or have a life, which started to get a little problematic for the people on our team who aren't robots. It just didn't work really. So we kind of step back and look at all the distractions that were happening. So we've already said it's just distractions. Why are they happening? And there were two categories that really kind of stuck out. We could bifurcate. The first one was really low hanging fruit. It was vendor emails and stuff that just was not important and didn't actually have to be done. So we could just stop doing it. The rest of it was the problem, and we couldn't stop doing that because the other teams relied on it. So by stopping doing that, we would actually impact the business, and that would be no point. So the rest of that work actually fell into a couple attributes seemed to define it. The first was that it was coming from outside our team. There wasn't any internal work really. Any internal questions or anything that came up, we could answer ourselves. So no biggie. The external changes were changes in questions really. Sometimes it was a question as simple as what's this variable in production? Because we were the only ones that could answer that, we had to answer it. And then the other category, or the other attribute was they all were less than 2 hours. And so we could fit a lot of we could actually take that and just kind of say like, if it's under 2 hours, then that's going to fall into this category. And so the second attempt that we made was our hero system, which is what this talk is all about. I chose the term hero specifically because I didn't want it to be help desk or anything like that, because it's not a bad role, but it's not exactly what we hired these guys for. We want them to be progressive in building infrastructure in the future, not answering questions. So I don't really want that title anywhere near them. This is how the system works. There is at the top, you can see that that's an engineer. They've got a question and they need some help. And so they throw this into Slack. They just do /fail hero, which is a slash command we've set up in Slack. And then that's going to post over to Zapier. Zapier is configured to have an incoming workflow, which will listen for that. Once Zapier gets the workflow, it posts over to Jira and creates a ticket. When that ticket is created on a specific project, it fires off an event that triggers an alert to PagerDuty. And then the PagerDuty is going to page the hero. So the hero knows exactly what happened and all the information comes across the page. So we use Slack day to day already, and this is the part that accomplished the easy thing. If anyone had a question or needed help, they didn't have to use Slack at all. They could just do a hero and then the description of what they need done. This makes it super easy. It actually is not required to do this. You can create the ticket in that specific project, but 98% of the tickets, or 98% of the hails don't go this way. They come through Slack because people are in Slack already, so they don't want to leave. And that little context switch is enough friction that we get knows that. The second big part of the workflow is Jira. We use Jira already for ticket tracking, so we wanted to keep that in the workflow. If you're doing something, it should be in Jira. And we set up a specific project because that project, we didn't need all the software bits, it's just really a description of what needs to be done. Anything more is a little overkill. So we set up a new called business projects now in Jira. It's called our hero board, so there's a nice Kanban style board to do, doing, and done. And the hero needs that to work to do it. That project is also hooked up to PagerDuty. So any new tickets in the page and any resolutions on tickets will actually close out that corresponding page. So the hero actually doesn't have to deal with PagerDuty. That person just needs to pay attention when their phone goes off. Using Jira also lets us link tickets, so we can say this ticket, which may be a longer project, is actually attributed to this hero request for 4 or 5 different pieces of information. So we can kind of use that as the starting point if a project actually is going to go longer. The other critical part is PagerDuty, which is how we alert our hero when you're on hero duty. You will get a page only during business hours, and that was a really important part of using PagerDuty. We could have used Jira to stop there, but by using PagerDuty, you can define a policy on a schedule that says between hours, these hours A and B, it's going to be a low incident, and after those hours, it'll be a high incident between those hours and low otherwise. So we just set this up to use our business hours. There's no reason for somebody who happens to be working in England to wake up somebody in America because they had a question in the middle of the night. That could kind of wait until the Eastern. We work 6 to 10 Eastern hours. So that can kind of wait until this business day. And those pages will sit there in low incident until the next day's business hours roll around in Rules location. PagerDuty also lets us have rotations, so I can say A, B, and C are on this rotation, and then it's a week-long rotation, so they'll rotate in and out immediately. We don't have to deal with that, which is really nice because we don't have, we don't have to update like a Google Calendar. No one has to remember on Friday, like go in there and change your email. It also allows for escalation in case the hero is somehow, some way incapacitated. We can have the issues go up to a team meeting or a manager within about 2 hours of this book. That's something to do. The end result is that everyone internally is really happy with it. We actually have a lot of our focus back, and there's one person who's distracted every week, but at least it's just one person. And you know it's your week to be distracted, which sets a kind of internal psychological expectation that really goes a long way. And you also know, on the other hand, when you're not a hero, that you can focus. Like you're not going to wake up and be covered with questions throughout the day. There are 4 other teams that have already adopted a form of this in their own way. And I would say that everyone's really enjoyed it so far. The other teams really feel like they can get quick answers, and they are working very efficiently. And it hits all the goals except automation. That one we haven't actually been working on, or we've kind of faltered on, because when somebody goes like from today, and then I think I'm actually here next week. But when I'm here next week, I'm gonna probably forget and start working on projects. There's supposed to be a focus on automating the priorities that come through. So like if somebody's asking, like when we see the same question asked 20 times, let's write it down somewhere, or let's automate the way that can be done. The same task is being asked of over and over again. Let's just automate it. And so that part is being neglected a little bit. We're still trying to focus on the other stuff that we've got, like the other balls that were in the air before we started being hero. I'd say it's going really well. The future so far is right for it. We're going to keep doing it. We are actually going to make it more general purpose because we want every team to have a hero, so that when we're split into 2 parts. We have a platform side of the house and a product side. The product side has little teams of teams, if you will, and each one of those is responsible for various services. So if Team A has a question about Team B's service and it's not the documentation, we want that to go through like a hero system so that it's the same, they get the same benefits, they can all focus except for the one better out. So we're going to build that in. Actually, we're going to take Zapier out and put in a chatbot that we're already using and use that for this purpose as well. And that's all. So we have any questions? Yeah.
So you've still got someone on the call. How does that solve the problem of they're dealing with a production issue and everything else is getting ignored?
It can escalate still. Yeah, so they can escalate if that happens to happen. Typically, we've been doing it for 3 months now, and it's happened once when I was on, and it was actually the issues that came up were related. So it was nice that those things were the same person. Because I knew, like I didn't have to, I wasn't out there or something myself there. But it doesn't entirely solve it, but we do have more than one person, so we can always escalate it. There's always a backup.
So this is for like system monitoring and also like is this customer questions that come in or like platform questions from people or?
No, it's just for internal teams. External questions would go to our support team. Yeah.
Do those same folks use that to ask questions?
What's that?
Do those same folks use the system to ask questions from users and all that? You know, like support requests that are coming in? Sort of they're on board.
Yeah. Yeah, anyone internally really is like there's no artificial boundary around like only engineers can use this. Like we just everyone, like a salesperson, if they're on a sales call and they have a question about this is happening, a question about what level of encryption we use in our SSL certificate. They may not know, but that's our rule. Or they can look it up. So yeah.
When you say 4 other teams have adopted this, how are they using it?
They have their own version, so it's one of the, I think, data services. If you need to run a data modification of production, they're the ones that are going to run it. And so instead of having a ticket that just kind of, in our Jira at least, like a lot of tickets kind of get buried and they're hard to find. And so that was the problem. People felt like we weren't really attuned to them. And the same thing happened with them, so that's why they've adopted this as well, so that they can actually, they know, hey, I need to release some production tomorrow, and then that person just take care of it. Usually they do that.
So, sorry, I've been thinking about all this. We've got kind of have gone through a similar path as far as everyone answers stuff and it goes on call. Where we're at right now is there are like 90% of the things would require a minute of effort, and then anything that would require longer, you either go test or someone or you put it in Jira, and Jira is a complete black hole. So how do you keep your process light enough that Jira stuff is actually dealt with? I don't know if you just don't have the time to get any issues, but that seems like Jira would be like kind of an overkill for that.
So using the Slack command, you don't really have to, like the person with the question doesn't have to go to Jira, and we use instead of making a software project, they just rewrite it all into a business project, and it's so limited, like it's 2 or 3 fields, it's very minimal in terms of Jira. You sit there and fill out some tickets for an hour, and then I'm done. So it's a really, really light one, it's just 2 fields for the description, and summary, a little bit of top lines. So we wanted to keep it lightweight because it was a 2-minute question. Why should somebody spend 10 minutes on
Right.
Jira? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And they wouldn't do it. They would regress to going through Slack and saying, hey, Bob, you're the last person I talked to, so like, what's up? So we use the slash command in Slack to really just generate that ticket. And the only person that's touching Jira in this context is the hero. And they're just dragging it on the Kanban board, so they're not really modifying the ticket outside of maybe leaving a comment, like reached out, didn't hear anything back, talked to his manager, or whatever was the case. So really some good comments just for like I don't know if it's a paper trail, but yeah. So that's kept it really light, like, and we made it its own product too, so we didn't have to deal with the workflows and other projects and stuff. It's just 3 columns. Really simple. It's nice that you don't have to pay for projects or per project in Jira, so it's just kind of why not? And the nice thing about that is you can like tell the tickets that come on. So if there's a lot of times, or not a lot of times, but in some cases we'll have something that comes up and it's an hour of investigation and whoa, this is a serious project, we're gonna have to, this is gonna take a week and multiple people. We'll create another ticket and link to it just so we can kind of go back and see what the original investigative group was.
You didn't consider lighter things like Trello or
No, we probably could. Like, if you're not using Jira, but we were using Jira already, so it was just a little easier. You get all the, even like the conflict things. It's a little more integrated than Trello up there. So we used Trello way back in the day. And it was exploding the number of tickets and stuff we had. So yeah, but I think it would work the same. I don't think that's a limitation by any means. If you're not using Jira, you're using Google trackers.
So right now you're trying to like aggregate all of those tickets into like FAQs or yeah.
Yeah, if they're knowledge gathering type things, yeah.
If they're what?
If they're information requests, so like if someone asks, how does this work, then maybe the first time we don't write it down because it could just be a one-off, but a lot of times you see the same question come up over and over, and then those should be kind of codified into some kind of documentation. I think or readme or something like that.
Right. What are the typical other things then outside of that? Is it like actual performance?
There's some things that couldn't be put in a FAQ, like what's the environment variable for this or that. Specifically things that are sensitive, like passwords, we wouldn't want to put that in plain text. Other things are kind of, we ship all of our logs to a place that the developers can see, so it's not a problem for them to look at that. But if the logs stop being shipped there, then that's something we have to kind of step in and do. So those are usually like a quick thing. stop getting shipped over and over again, we want to make a solution to restart that process.